So here's a few things that I want you to follow. That it will be great if you can follow this. This will be a relatively safer deadlift. So first things first, when you approach the bar, make sure this is one point, this is another point, this is where the bar should be placed. Okay, when you stand, the bar should be directly above this part. Okay, this is how it should be. Okay, so that when you generate force, this part and this part, both of these parts are pushing against the floor. You are treating it like a leg press. Secondly, easy tip, let your armpit be directly above the bar. There are two extremes. Okay, when you grab the bar, either you will do this where your hips are too high, your armpits are way too forward from the bar, from the line of the bar, or you will start at way too low. When I tell people your hips should be lower, they go to the other extreme end. They just sit. So ideally, make sure, keep your arms loose, go grab the bar, and the bar should be directly under your armpit. And lastly, right before the lift, never roll the bar, never move the bar. Make sure that the bar is stable at this point. Same goes for you also. When you grab the bar, don't do this, okay, or don't dance before taking off. Make sure everything is in place, nothing is moving, and then you execute the lift. So when you grab the bar, just let this clicking sound come. Okay, there's some gap between the bar and the plate, right? So make sure this happens. Okay, hold this bar, squeeze. When you try to hold this position at the same time, imagine squeezing the bar so hard and trying to bend it. Okay, it can be either a mixed grip or a straight conventional grip. Imagine bending the bar. So grab the bar, one, okay, and this is the most important part. Never restart the second rep without placing the weight back on the floor. Okay, always finish the rep, place the bar, place the weight back on the floor, and then start with the next repetition. Okay, about the breathing part. So when you start off, right, make sure you breathe into your stomach, push your stomach outside. This entire part should be as tight as you possibly can keep it. Okay, now next thing is about how wide your foot width should be. Now this part, be it deadlift, be it squat, it will be different for different people. Like this particular bone, right, the bone that is here underneath, it is attached to my hips at a particular angle. Okay, it is attached in different angles for different people. Okay, based on how it is attached, different people will feel comfortable at different foot width, different feet angle, the different angle at which your toes are pointing towards. Okay, so there will never be a standard approach कि यार हाँ इतना ही, it should be exactly shoulder width apart, it should be always pointed 45 degrees to your outwards, or it should always be pointed forwards. There's no way you can standardize this part. Okay, there's only one way. Always make sure, this is one test you can do, especially for conventional deadlift. Try to jump the highest you can. Okay, whichever foot width allows you to jump the highest, that is the exact same foot width which will allow you to generate the most force, which will allow you to push your feet into the floor at your best capacity, at your strongest capacity. Okay, so do that test. Figure out a foot width which allows you to jump your highest. That is your ideal foot width for deadlift or squat, whichever it is. As for how much outside or outwards it should be pointed, or whether it should be pointed forwards, or where it should be pointed for that matter, you can just do some trial and error and you'll find out. Okay, this is ideal foot width for me. It might be different for you. For some people this will be a little wider. For people who have a big belly, they will find it relatively hard to get into the starting position because their stomach will come in between. So they might have to widen the foot width. But for now, for me, this is my ideal foot width. This is where I will go. Now, when you grip the bar, this part of your arm, your elbow wala part, this should directly be touching here, okay, directly outside this, okay, not this. This will be applicable if you're training specifically for your lat strength, or if you're training for Olympic lifts, okay. But otherwise, if it is just powerlifting or just your general, you just want to get strong, you enjoy doing conventional deadlifts and you want to get strong, then just let it touch outside of your knees. Let it touch outside of your knees, and then these were the basics that I want you to follow. When I tell someone that try to keep your back straight, generally people tend to arch their back, or when I don't personally, I do not like this cue of push your chest outwards. I don't like that, but it is used. And when someone is told that push your chest out, what people try to do is that this is their position, they do this. Now this results in overarching your back, okay. Overarching your back should not happen. Similarly, for obvious reasons, this should also not happen. Now, as I said before, depending on different people's biomechanics, different foot positions, different deadlift stance, like people will have different biomechanics. Some people's torso length will be too much. Himanshu Sachdeva is one of those people. Bobby Singh is one of those people. Some people's femurs will be too long, okay. Again, Himanshu Sachdeva is again one of those people, okay. So for those people, if their hips are back, then the upper body is back, and then they will have to bend a little too forward to just grab the bar, okay. The starting stance will be, so based on all of these factors, right, based on the length of your torso, based on the length of your femurs, and based on the length of your arms, these three things, depending on the length of these three things, different people will have a fairly different starting stance, okay. So never judge someone, never tell someone that आपका deadlift stance ज़्यादा खराब है, you are bending too much, just because it doesn't match with my stance, or it doesn't match with your stance, or someone in your gym, or Alan Thrall or Lane Norton, or whoever it is. Different people have different biomechanics. Don't judge them based on that. Just make sure that their armpits are directly above the bar, and the bar is directly above the middle of their feet, okay, and their hips are not way too high, okay. Make sure that happens. Also, one more is some people might have to bend their back a little bit just to get into the starting position. I will see if I can post a video of someone with that kind of a stance, and it is perfectly fine as long as you've been holding that kind of a stance right from the beginning of your training career, from your lifting career, right until you are deadlifting 200-250 kgs for reps, okay. Different people will have different stances, okay. It's just that when you start off with a bent back, locking out at the top becomes slightly difficult. Instead, if you start off with a fairly flatter back, locking out is not so big of a deal, okay. So make sure that happens. Only thing that you have to avoid is that when the weight gets heavier and heavier, when the load on the bar gets heavier and heavier, your form is going to deteriorate. There's no way around it. It's a law of nature, basically, okay. When you increase the intensity, your form will suffer slightly, okay. And don't lose your mind if that happens, okay. One thing is that also you'll always notice if you have an intense set of deadlift, the first repetition and the 8th, 9th, 10th repetition will not look the same. There will be slight deterioration in form, and that is fine. Around 20 to 30% of deterioration in your form is fine, okay. Especially you will see that happen a lot in the 1 rep max. You'll see their form suffers a lot. Your 1 rep max will only tell you about your weak points, which are the weaker parts, okay. So you'll have to work on that in your next block, basically. I'll talk about that in some other video. This is not the one. So don't judge someone just based on that. Make sure that the weight, when the weight gets heavier and heavier, you are forced into a bent back. If you are unwillingly forced into a bent back or into a really bad form, bad posture, even when you are not trying your 1 rep max, make sure that that is the last repetition you are doing with that horrible form. Okay, bent back is fine unless you have been forced into that form. If you have been forced into that form, it's bad news. Don't repeat that. Remove the load, reduce the load on the bar. Even if you have lifted with better form in the past, today is not your day. Today is one of those days where your strength is down for no good reason. So at such times, drop the load. Make sure that your form and technique, at least these few basics that I just spoke about, at least those few things are on point. So I think that was about it. Do let me know if you have any other questions also about deadlift. I'll be more than happy to help you out in my own capacity. Thank you so much for listening to this.